So today I'm very excited to speak to Jeff Slaughter, Chocolatier, but I'm not going to tell you much more about it, but I think everybody would agree with me that's something that we are all interested in. Jeff, please take it away.
Great. Thanks for having me today, Hans. A lot of people want to know how I got involved in chocolate because it's such an unusual thing. The easy answer is that we moved to Belgium in the year 2000 for my job. And if you spend much time in Belgium, you're going to see chocolate shops everywhere. As we say, maybe a chocolate shop on every corner.
True, very true.
There are 300 different, at least by last count, there are more than 300 different chocolate companies in Belgium. And many of those companies have more than one location. So you can imagine how many chocolate shops that there are spread out all over the country.
Yes.
And the reason why that's a lot is because the population of Belgium is only 11 million people. And so the Belgians love their chocolate, and there's some reasons why Belgians love their chocolate and why Belgium even got the jump on a lot of the world and what to do with chocolate and how to treat it and how to market it. Mm-hmm. And so it gave Belgium a real head start in the chocolate business. Yeah. So we moved to Belgium, and a couple of years later, I began to look for something to do just kind of on the side. Yeah. I'm a writer. I've always written, and I wanted to have some kind of a project. So I thought, well, it would be interesting to have a blog about, Belgium, Brussels, mm-hmm. and write mm-hmm. about different aspects of living in Belgium. So I began to do that. And obviously, one of the topics that I landed on was writing about chocolate. And I began to write, different about different companies and different things that I found. There's a couple of chocolate museums I reviewed, and the more I wrote about it, the more interested I became. And how do you do this? How do you learn how to work with chocolate? And yes. I looked around for some maybe some classes or something that I could take, and really all I could find was Callebaut, which is one of the major producers of chocolate in Belgium, had a week-long course, maybe 5 or 6 hours a day for a week, and it was really more for tourists, for people coming in and just wanting to get their hands dirty, so to speak, in the chocolate business. Couldn't learn a whole lot in a week, but you could learn a bit. Yeah. Or you could go to school. I think there was a school, a chocolatier school, somewhere over near on the west side of Brussels, mm-hmm. and you had to be able to speak fluent French or Flemish and commit 2 years of your life. Well, I could do neither, and so I thought, well, that's a bit too much for what I can do right now. Mm-hmm. So this is back in, I don't know, 2011, 2012. And I began to do a web search and actually found an online course created by a chocolatier in Vancouver, Canada. Her name was, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. The name of the chocolate shop, the name of the chocolate school was called École Chocolat. Mm-hmm. And so I enrolled. It was $700. The whole course was, I think, about 3 months. Mm-hmm. And back then, we didn't have a lot of video. Yeah. And so they did more instructional sheets, telling you what to do. And there was some video instruction, but we had assignments. And so every 2 weeks we had an assignment that we actually had to make something and send pictures in so it could be judged by appearance. Obviously, they couldn't judge it by taste, but they judged it by appearance, and so I learned that way. And it didn't have with chocolate, you have to have a tempering machine. I can talk mm-hmm. about that more later if you want. Yes, but yes. The basic thing is I had to do everything by hand. I had to I found the chocolate that was accessible in Belgium, and yes. I used the microwave to temper. It was messy. Can
you actually do it with a microwave?
You can temper chocolate with the microwave. You can temper chocolate with a double boiler.
Okay.
And so basically the thing with chocolate, we use the word temperamental when someone's a little bit, you're not quite sure how they're going to react to a
Yeah.
situation. You know,
Yeah.
you might say they're temperamental. Well, that's what we say with chocolate. If you don't treat chocolate right, it becomes temperamental.
Oh, okay.
When I do workshops, the way I like to explain is that we temper chocolate to make it behave. And the way that the behavior that we want to see is that we want the chocolate to have a snap when we break it.
Okay.
We want it to have a smooth mouthfeel.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be glossy, shiny. We want the chocolate not to separate. In chocolates, there are solids, the cocoa solids, and there's fat, the cocoa fat, cocoa butter. Yeah. And if you don't temper it or don't temper it right, those will separate and you'll get white streaks in your chocolate. And so those are some of the things that we want. We want to make sure that chocolate behaves correctly so that we can enjoy it better. Otherwise, it's not as enjoyable experience. So when that's one of the first things you do when you work with chocolate is learn to temper it. Yeah. And basically, what you're doing is you're raising the temperature up to 108 degrees, 112 degrees, depending on what you're working with, and you're basically kind of neutralizing the sugar crystals that are in the chocolate. And you get it melted and you get it up to that high of a temperature. Then you add what we call seed chocolate back in, which is basically just chocolate that's already been tempered. Okay. And you add that back in and you stir and bring the temperature down to about 88.7 degrees if it's dark, and a little bit lower, about 86.7 if it's milk. It's a bit difficult to do with the microwave. It takes a long time to get it down to the right temperature. And if you're using chocolate chips, then you have to pick out the chocolate chips. Once you get to 90 degrees, you have to pick all the excess chocolate out, which can be a little laborious.
Wow.
And so I'd use the microwave as long as I was just learning. And then we would go back to the States every year around Christmas time for a month or two. And I would make chocolate to sell as a fundraiser for our nonprofit. And I began to look at machines, and I found a machine that I could afford that actually does the heavy lifting for me. It tempers the chocolate and has all the buttons, and it has a button for milk, dark and white. And so it does that part, and then I can focus on preparing the molds and getting ready for the other production.
So you were talking about you moving to Belgium from where, I guess you're back there. So where is from and to?
Well, we grew up in the States, in Louisiana, and met my wife in Louisiana, and we eventually moved to Mississippi. I used to work in healthcare marketing. And so we lived in Jackson, Mississippi for 10 years. I was a healthcare marketer in a rehabilitation facility. And we were invited to come to France to work with a mission there. Friends of ours were missionaries there. And I'm also a musician. I play the piano and sing. And we were invited to come, and thank you, and join them. And so we moved to France in 1998. And we were there for 2 years in the Loire Valley, just southwest of Paris. We lived right across from the Cher River. It was a beautiful place. We really enjoyed living there. But we got an invitation to come to Brussels and begin to do some work there. And that's how we got to Brussels in the year 2000.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you were talking about a lot of ingredients and a lot of things that you were looking at to buy, like the tempering machine and so on. So where do you find these things? Where do you find your raw material?
Right. Okay. Well, one thing I learned as I was studying about Belgian chocolate is that there's only 2 companies that actually make the chocolate. And then everybody else buys their chocolate from this company these companies in Belgium, and they do the magic with it. So a chocolate maker is a company like Callebaut. Then there's another one called Belcolat, and those are the 2 companies that actually make the chocolate. They get the beans in from different parts of the world. They have these huge processing machines that make the chocolate in various forms. They can make it in block form. They can make it in chip form, looks like chocolate chip. I've even seen it liquid form. I was at a new house factory one time, and I saw an 18-wheeler drive away, and it looked like a diesel, like it was full of gas, but it was full of chocolate, liquid chocolate. I don't know what they do with liquid chocolate, but it was it was interesting to see that. We get our chocolate. We use Belgian chocolate and we use Callebaut. And the primary supplier I'm using right now is actually in Canada.
Okay.
I found that they have what I need. They have the exact chocolate I need. And I can get it shipped here for basically 17 Canadian dollars, the whole shipment. So I've been buying my chocolate from there, from a distributor in Canada. And my machines I get from a company called Chocovision. They're up in the Northeast. Again, I found them online. Their machines are really easy to operate. They're small. I can temper 1.5 pounds in each machine, which is about 700 grams. And I now have 3 machines, so I can run 3 machines at one time if I need to.
Yes.
And that comes in handy when I'm working with a lot of molds and really fast, or if I'm doing workshops where I need to have more chocolate available to get through a workshop more quickly. I get my molds and some transfer sheets and other things from a company in Antwerp, Belgium called Chocolate World. People come from around the world to shop at this chocolate supply company. And it's just amazing. You walk in there and you see all these thousands of different molds and transfer sheets, which basically with a transfer sheet, you use that for the chocolate to give it a different look on the top. And you can choose from a variety of them. And you can color chocolate with colored cocoa butter. There's some great chocolatiers who do that and really make their chocolates look like art. And then transfer sheets are basically a sheet of acetate with colored cocoa butter sprayed on them. And you use a special type of mold to hold that sheet in place. And then when you pour the chocolate in there and the chocolate sets, it pulls the design off and you get a beautiful design on your bar or on your praline or whatever.
That becomes part of that.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I am creative. I've always loved creativity. As I said, I'm a writer. I play piano, I sing. But I've never really done made something with my hands creatively. I can't draw a straight line. Give me a lump of clay, it's gonna still look like a lump of clay when I'm done with it. But I thought, well, I can do something like this. It's beautiful if I have molds and all that. And so I began to understand that a chocolatier's role is very creative because there's various things you can do to create chocolate. And you choose the type of chocolate, whether it's dark or milk or white. And nowadays they have even other kinds. There's a gold chocolate, which is a caramel, a caramel white. It's caramelized white chocolate. There's a new chocolate that Callebaut has created called Ruby, which is pink, and it is kind of a more of a sour, has a little more sour taste to it. But it is a pure chocolate. It's not just colored chocolate. So you choose your chocolate, choose your brand. You can even choose your percentage. So let's say you're working with dark. The dark I use is 52%, so it's not very dark. But you could choose a 70% or even higher. You can choose origin chocolate. So you can choose chocolate that comes from a certain region in Africa or the Philippines or South America. But you choose your chocolate. And then you can, if you're making bars, then that's pretty much what you would do. You choose your toppings, if you're going to put toppings on it, such as sea salt or pistachios or roasted pecans. If you're going to use transfer sheets, you can choose your transfer sheet. Or if you're going to use colored cocoa butter, you can splat some of that on the mold. And when the chocolate sets, you'll have a piece of pretty much abstract art on your bar. Or you can choose nothing, and just have your bar plain. But you also, I skipped the step, you choose your mold. And so your mold can have various designs on it, or it can be various sizes and thicknesses. And then you have your packaging, what your packaging looks like as part of the process. So there's a number of steps involved creatively in designing a product that gives someone like me some control to where I can create something that I'm proud of. I feel good. It tastes good. It looks good. but it's not a lump of clay or
Yes.
a painting or something like that, which is not my area of artistic expression.
Yeah. So you were talking about the different regions where you can get your chocolate from in the world. Now, if I look at a chocolate bar, I see 70%, 80%, sometimes 90%. Um, do they all come in those percentages? Is it just the taste that is different from the different regions? And do they do something similar? I mean,
Yeah.
you get your different percentages and so on, but they just taste a little bit different.
Yeah, chocolate is like wine, and
Yeah,
so and coffee.
yeah,
It reflects the flavors, the aromas, the um, of the terroir and of the land that it's in.
yeah, yeah.
So we have wine now in South Africa, we have it in Australia, we have it in France, in Italy, California. There's different places now all over the world that have wine, and all that
Yeah,
wine tastes different.
yeah.
It can be a cause of it can be a different vine, it can be the area of the world it's grown in, and the soil can be the environment that's around it. So with cacao, one of the interesting things about cacao is it can only grow 20 degrees north of the equator and 20 degrees south of the equator.
Oh, interesting.
So it's an imaginary line around the world where cacao can grow, because it has to have that tropical environment for it to survive and to thrive.
Yes.
So we find the cacao originated in South America, and it migrated with the help of humans to places like Africa, that same like Ivory Coast and Congo and around that area, all the way around to Indonesia. There are Indonesian cacao farms, Filipino cacao farms, all the way to the one state in the USA that can grow cacao, and that's Hawaii.
Oh,
because it happens to be in that little ring around the
I
world.
see. Okay.
And so that gives you a picture of where cacao can grow.
Yeah.
As far as what how the area that it grows in affects the taste, it's all about the terroir and what's around it. Cacao can have a number of different flavors associated with it, such as a fruity flavor, smoky flavor, mushrooms, earthy flavor. There's actually a flavor wheel of cacao, and there's like, I don't know, 15, 16 different flavors that you could, for the experienced tongue, could maybe find, what flavors are, represented in that piece of chocolate. And I think it's the same way with wine and with coffee. It's affect, the areas where it grows affects it. As far as percentage goes, when we talk about percentage of chocolate, it's all chocolate starts off 100%. It's 100% cacao. And then the percentage drops the more the more sugar they add to it.
I see.
That's kind of what we say. And of course, with milk chocolate, they don't actually add milk; they add milk powder. And so with milk chocolate, it's watered down even more, so that because it's just a different product, a different taste. White chocolate, interestingly enough, some people say is not chocolate. Well, what it is, it's not chocolate. It's not cacao solids. It's cacao butter. It's cocoa butter. And so that's what white chocolate is. It's cocoa butter mixed with some other ingredients such as milk and a stabilizer called soy lecithin. One interesting thing about white chocolate that a lot of people don't know is that real white chocolate is actually yellow because cocoa butter is yellow. So we do see products in the grocery stores that are white, and they present themselves as white chocolate, but true, authentic 100% white chocolate is actually yellow.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit more about the forms that you produce. Chocolate, I heard something about pralines. I heard something about chocolate bars and so on.
Yeah.
And also what kind of fillings do you put into them?
Okay. Yeah, I got real creative in the beginning with pralines and fillings because I thought that's what my target market would want. American, because I was traveling back and forth to America. Now we live here. I base here in Louisiana, and I travel back and forth to Europe to continue my work with my nonprofit. Americans are not as crazy about, about at least the ones I sell to. They're not as crazy about the ones with fillings in them as they are with solids, which I was surprised at. But again, we have to remember that, in places like Belgium, other European countries, pralines have been around for a long time, and they've developed their recipes, and it's really a part of the culture. A lot of the people I sell to are not, their level of sophistication about chocolate is not very high right now. They're used to, running in the grocery store, or where we buy gas, and buying a cheap chocolate bar. It has a minimal amount of cacao in it, and they're satisfied with that, just because they haven't been exposed to fine chocolate. So a lot of the people I sell to just prefer either dark or milk chocolate. And so I learned that over the years, that pushing the pralines with the different feelings was actually not helping my sales, because people didn't understand it, and they wanted what they were familiar with, which is a solid bar.
Yes.
So for the most part, what I do around Christmas, which is the big time of year where we sell a lot, is bars. I'll do milk bars. I'll do dark bars. I do use transfer sheets on those. And I have I call it a Jolie bar, which if you know French, French is, Jolie means pretty in French. And so I choose designs that are Christmas designs, and those sell real well. I do peppermint bark. So I use the Belgian dark and the Belgian white chocolate, and put peppermint oil in those, and cover them with peppermint, crushed peppermint. And that's something that Americans really like.
Yes.
And then I'll do a few other things. My wife has gotten into making sea salt caramel. She makes that, and then I cut it and put it into a mold, a fleur-de-lis mold, and we sell a lot of sea salt caramels. So those are probably the main things I'm doing right now: solids, caramels, peppermint bark, things like that.
So the salted caramel, would you cover that in chocolate as well?
Or what we do. Yeah, well, you can eat it on its own. And we have done that, but we don't have a cutter for the caramel, and a caramel cutter, and it gets a little hard to cut those and to separate them by hand and to wrap them. It's a very tedious process, so it's not really worth the time to do that. So what we do is we have she makes the caramel in a kind of a large, almost like a cake pan. And it's about I don't know, 3/4 of an inch high. And we pull that out, and I cut it with a knife into small squares, and put that into a mold, either milk or dark chocolate. And we sell a lot of those. The people who like that combination really like it. So they consistently buy. I've had one customer recently buy as many as 8 boxes at one time. So because she knew I was going to stop making, when it gets hot in the South, I don't ship, and so she wanted to get her stash in before it got too hot.
And talking about shipping, do you ship all over the world or mainly in the US?
We just ship in the US. I do this as a side hustle, and that's one of the things I like about it. I can turn it on, I can turn it off when I want to. I do not want to shop right now. I don't want the burden of that. I don't want the overhead. I don't want the employees. I can't. I do other things. I have a full-time job with my mission, and so this is just something to help us with the mission that we do, and it's also something that I like to think about the idea of easing into retirement at some point in the distant future. And having something that I built up that can help us with retirement and give me something to do. I enjoy being around people. I really enjoy doing workshops. I enjoy going to markets and meeting people. So I see this as a way to build this up to the point where whenever, we do make a change like that, then I've got something to transition to, and
Yes.
not just wake up one morning and go, oh goodness, what am I going to do now? So we do ship around in the US.
Yeah.
We have some customers who order from hot places such as California,
Mm.
Arizona,
Mhm.
and Florida. Those are the three states that make me nervous when anybody ever orders from there, because you have to watch the temperature in those places.
Yeah.
I do have ice packs that I can ship with the chocolate,
Mm.
but ice packs will not guarantee that the chocolate will
Oh, yes.
arrive in one piece.
Yeah.
So I'm careful when I ship. I usually will ship those kinds of products on a Monday.
Mhm.
I'll often ship them 2-day UPS or FedEx to make sure they
Mhm.
get there in time, because I don't want the product to arrive, melted or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, we do ship in the U.S., different states, different around, and sometimes at Christmas people will send orders for family. I have one customer in Utah who sends me the same 8 people every year that he wants to
Mhm.
receive our peppermint bark, and I'll send that out for them, and all they have to do is just write a check, pay for it
Yeah.
and send
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
the addresses, and then their Christmas shopping is done.
Okay.
So that's an easy thing for them and something predictable for us.
So if anyone in the USA wants to order some chocolates from you, where can they reach you?
Well, we have a website. It's SheaSlaughterChocolate.com. It's a
Okay.
CHEZ
I will. I
slaughter.
will. I will put
Okay.
a subtitle
So
with
on our
the.
website, they can order chocolate. But right now we're not making chocolate for orders because of the
Okay.
heat.
Yeah.
We're in the
Yeah.
summer now.
Yeah.
It's May of 2022.
Mhm.
And because of the heat, we can't really ship.
Mhm.
I am getting a couple of orders locally that I'm doing. We just did some chocolate covered strawberries for Mother's Day,
Okay.
and we have a new mold. Chocolate World has created a mold called "Say It with Chocolate,"
Mhm.
and they have different sayings
Oh, I
and
see.
all the molds.
Mhm.
And the most popular one that I make is a thank you bar. It says "Thank you" in chocolate.
Oh, okay.
And so I've gotten an order recently for 50 of those bars, and then just got
Mhm.
an order today for another 80 for
Oh,
a end of the year celebration for a company. And so that's kind of interesting. I can do that as long as it's local. But when
yes.
it
Yes.
gets outside, when I have to ship, I'm not
Mhm.
comfortable shipping. Some chocolatiers do, but
Yeah.
they're set up for that,
Yeah.
and more power to them. I'm just not there.
Well,
So
I think that was a very interesting talk and explanation of what you're doing and how you're doing it, how the chocolate tempering and everything works. I really found that interesting, but I think we may have a lot more to talk about in future interviews. Um, but thank you very much.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Hans.
Pleasure.